afternoon, and welcome to the Black History Month Roundtable being hosted by Polished Pebbles Girls Mentoring Program. We're calling it today, Closing the Hope Gap for Girls. I'm very happy to have you all here with us today, and I'm Kelly Fair, and I'm the founder of Polished Pebbles Girls Mentoring Program, so thank you. You know, with this talk, I think a lot about as girls and women of color face new and existing challenges caused by the pandemic, including a she session, which included limited academic and social opportunities. Local business leaders and community leaders today are joining us for a Black History Month roundtable discussion to discuss different ways in which we can work together to invest in girls. Like all children, young girls of color start out exhibiting lots of wonder and excitement about the world around them. But this unfortunately fades as they look to get older. Why does it fade for them? Well, for many of our girls, there aren't a lot of programs out there that explicitly serve adolescent and teen girls of color. With our girls, they encounter discrimination as they seek different opportunities. They're going out for jobs, going out for internships, going out for programs. And often we hear them say, well, they don't want girls like us, or at that kind of business or in that kind of program. That's just not a place for girls like me. Our girls often don't see investments in their communities and the schools for girls like them. And then for our girls, they're often discouraged. And that disillusionment, unfortunately, continues to grow. And then with COVID, it's done only just continuing to exacerbate these challenges with our girls. While the phenomenon of the she session, which is the exponential job losses women have faced during the pandemic, these experiences have only been compounded for young girls of color. Why? Well, girls of color often, even in the pandemic and before the pandemic, serve as caretakers for their families. They're the babysitters, they're the elder caregivers, and often in charge of many aspects of domestic work in their homes. And their families have often struggled to maintain stability. For many of our girls, their learning loss during COVID has dramatically affected their educational gains, and girls of color have been fortunately suffering in that way often as well too. And due to the economic instability, their families have grown in that way. Girls have been requiring them to take on additional paid support to support their families. And often our girls, their health, physical and mental, has suffered during the pandemic due to healthcare disparities, food deserts, and lack of safe resources for physical exercise. So our girls have definitely been under fire, which really highlights why we at Polished Pebbles wanted to have this conversation today. We saw this as an excellent opportunity to use this platform during Black History Month to really have a conversation right here at the intersection where business and profit meets purpose-driven work like with Polished Pebbles. What you'll hear from the leaders today is their opportunity to reflect on their own individual experiences, their own individual reflections about this particular topic. And also you'll hear a lot about all of our shared values. Our shared values when it comes to corporate social responsibility, when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what we're working here today is talking about sharing ideas, getting us excited, providing the know-how of how we invest in girls to create career pipelines for them as young as 5th grade on up into college, into graduate school, so that they know and have successful ways to enter future careers in lots of different industries, including ones that are not traditional for females as well. And why must we make this investment? Is what I like to call, and now throughout Polished Pebbles and all of our partners, we have to invest in girls to close the hope gap. We often in this work, working with girls and women, talk about the challenges that girls and women are having when it comes to closing other gaps, the gender pay gap, the gender leadership gap when it comes to elected officials and to corporate America. But we often like to say with the girls and the Black and brown communities that we serve, before we can even get to thinking about closing those other gaps, we have to close what we call the hope gap. And the hope gap is doing exactly what we're talking about. Girls, preparing them for college, preparing them for future jobs, sharing these opportunities. And they often holler back and let us know and say, That's not for girls like us. I don't see mentors or people like that in my communities. I don't see investments like that in our communities. So what we do in Polished Pebbles, and of course other partners as well, is provide the skills, teach them, provide the resources, bring the mentors, and bring many career-related experiences directly to our girls so that they can then have a pathway, have practical tools, and actually close that hope gap and be very hopeful about their futures because they're exposed to many of the people just like you in the audience today and definitely here on our panel. And so I'm so excited to invite you guys to this very critical conversation that hopefully will be the beginning of many great conversations that we'll have. So thank you for sharing your lunch with us today. And speaking of sharing lunch, of course, one of the things that's really important for us, and you'll hear many of our partners talk about it with Polished Pebbles, is we're big on girls preparing for their first day of work. I'm right here in downtown Hyde Park, Chicago, for our partners that are here locally, but also for those that are across the country at the Hyatt Place South, right here in Hyde Park. And we also were broadcasting from the Sophie Hotel down the street, two sister hotels who did what? They hosted 2 busloads of 60 girls for their very first day of work in their Polished Pebbles job shadows. So we're excited to have them as partners, excited that girls got to learn about the hospitality industry. They did the front of the house, the back of the house. Sometimes they even climb up to the roof and see the lead roof and how economically and socially and environmentally responsible that Hyatt hotels are. And then, of course, I want to give a shout out. They had to have lunch. And so we want to thank the Hyatt, we want to thank the Sophie, and we also want to thank our partners today with Let Us Entertain You, Restaurant Groups, and Beatrice Margaret, specifically because they sponsored lunch for the girls today. So thank you for all of you guys being here. Definitely thank you to our partners. So I'm going to move on to go ahead and introduce this dynamic panel that we have here to share with you today. And I'd like to go ahead and just kind of go through our different panelists and give them an introduction. So 2 of our first panelists, one of course is Monique Hunt. She is the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Program Manager for Let Us Entertain You Restaurants. Her professional experience in hospitality operations, training and development, and human resources spans more than 2 decades in restaurants, hotels, and aviation lounges. And of course, Let Us Entertain You is a Polished Pebbles partnering company. So join me in welcoming Monique. I'd also like to welcome this afternoon lunch hour, Renee Williams. Renee is the Regional Community Development Manager in Michigan, in Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Colorado for the Huntington National Bank. Renee is a native of Detroit, so we're going to show the Detroit people some love this morning. And she resides currently in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And Renee has over 28 years in the financial services industry. And of course, the Huntington National Bank is also a Polished Pebbles partnering company. So join me in welcoming Renee. I'd also like to welcome the Honorable Karen Freeman Wilson, who began serving as president and CEO of the Chicago Urban League in January 2020. But having served in the public arena for most of her professional life, she was the mayor of her hometown, Gary, Indiana, from 2012 through 2019. And she was the first female to lead the city of Gary and the first African-American female mayor in Indiana. And of course, the Chicago Urban League is also a Polished Pebbles community partner. Please join me in introducing Maureen Stemming. She's the director of the Professional Development Program at the Crown's Family School of Social Work, Policy and Practice at the University of Chicago, a role that she's held since 2007. PDP for short, presents workshops and lectures to mental health practitioners and nonprofit professionals on a wide range of topics. And of course, PDP and the University of Chicago is a proud Polished Pebbles community partner. Join me in welcoming Jenny Hahn. She's the Director of Design Integration for the Bolt Company. With 28 years in the design and construction industry, Jenny is an accomplished licensed architect and leader in the healthcare world with extensive experience in managing teams. She's also part of the executive board of She Builds, which connects women in the construction industry for networking purposes, which She Builds is also a proud Polished Pebbles partner for our Pink Hard Hats project. Jean G. Wine, partner of Fox, Swibel, Levin, and Carroll LLP. She's a capital partner in the firm's Chambers Ranked Construction Law Group. Jean has been individually named among the leading construction law attorneys in Illinois by Chambers USA, America's leading lawyers for business. And she's also the founder and president of the Chicago chapter of Professional Women in Construction. And we got Jimena Larkin joining us today. Previously, Jimena has served as the Director of Special Projects for the DNC Convention, and then also went on to serve as the Deputy Director of Latino and Spanish Media for the Biden for President campaign. And today, she serves as the Director of Digital Strategy for Mayor Lori Lightfoot in the city of Chicago. And then finally, of course, Real Men Wear Pink and Real Men Invest in Girls. We'd like to welcome Wilbur C. Millhouse III. He's the chairman and CEO of Millhouse Engineering and Construction Incorporated. He founded Millhouse Engineering and Construction in 2001 and has now grown to become one of the largest African-American owned engineering firms in the country, with nearly 400 team members serving 3 countries and 12 industries. Mr. Millhouse and Millhouse Engineering and Construction and Millhouse Charities are proud partners of the Polished Pebbles Pink Hard Hats Project. Will everybody join me in welcoming and thanking our wonderful panel for being here today? All right, so at Polished Pebbles, of course, we love to communicate and we love to connect, but we love to keep it real and accessible. And so we're gonna switch it up a little bit today in our panel. We're gonna try a slightly different format from the typical panel, right? We like to keep it moving. So today what we're going to do is called the fishbowl. So the fishbowl format will give us a chance to hear some different voices engaging each other. So I'm going to do the Kelly Fair the Mentor thing and shut my mouth for a few minutes and listen to these experts chat it up with each other. A part of our goal here at Polished Pebbles is, of course, to create a big tent for all of us to work together when it comes to supporting Black and Brown girls. So today, each of our panelists will be paired with another panelist, and they'll pose a question to each other. We'll make sure to allow some time at the end from the audience for Q&A. So you see both a chat function here today and a Q&A function. If you have some questions that you'd like for us to address and share with the panelists at the end, please put it in the Q&A function and not the chat function. But you could keep giving all the amens and I love this. You could put all that in the chat section if you love, because we love to hear and get that encouragement as well, okay? All right. So feel free to share those questions. The Polished Pebbles team will collect them. And so we'll ask them at the end of our fishbowl. Y'all ready? Everybody ready? Thumbs up? All right. I'm in student talk now because we had 60 girls here this morning. So, all right, here we go. So I'm going to bring up our first panelist pair. So let's bring up Renee Williams, again, the Senior Vice President, Regional Community Development Manager at Huntington National Bank. And her pair will be finished with Monique Hunt, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Program Manager for Let Us Entertain You Restaurants. Ladies, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And thank you everyone for joining today. It is just a pleasure to be here and also to be a partner with Polished Pebbles. And I have the awesome opportunity of posing the first question to Monique. So I'm going to try to do this really well to kick us off here, Monique. Let Us has many strategic goals centering on DEI. How does partnering with Polished Pebbles, which works with girls of color, help you to achieve those goals?
Well, thank you, Renee, for the question and also for the introduction, Kelly, and all that you all are doing, not just with this Black History Month event, but in all of the work that you're doing day in and day out. And, you know, as a representative of Let Us Entertain You Restaurants, as their DEI program manager, I could not be more honored and more impassioned to be with Polished Pebbles and in partnership. Not just as an employer partner, but specific to the work of DEI. We have created this program about a year and a half in, and we operate through pillars of engagement. And 3 of those pillars of engagement include building relationships, really deep, meaningful relationships with our community partners, with our employees, and with candidates who ultimately hope to come in to become employees. And so for me, it was really a no-brainer once I discovered Polished Pebbles, just through the channels of social media, to say, there's some alignment there. I think there's some synergy that we can create with what we do internally and what they're doing with their young CEOs. And I pulled back and really thought about the senior leaders of Let Us Entertain You and how it is that they got to the levels and how they became so accomplished in their roles. And ultimately, what that came down to was mentorship. Most of our senior leaders here within the company did not start at the top. They started in hourly positions or they started in entry-level management roles. But along the way, they had someone internally to help them grow and develop as professionals. Someone was actually there alongside to help teach the business of restaurant operations. And now that they've ascended to the top of the chain and they've got some expertise and knowledge and experience under their belt, we're in position right now to give that back and to pay that forward. And specifically through those engagement pillars of our DEI program, we want to allow our senior leaders and employees of all levels to be able to reach across the aisle, to reach back and to help teach someone and to help give access and to provide opportunities for young women specifically, but going down deep as a woman of color, being able to allow that representation to be present so that they know, that they feel and they believe that there is a place for them within hospitality, within Let Us Entertain You. And there's someone who's guiding them and showing them what to do, how to do it, how to create a career path to move forward and to move up. It is so impactful to be able to see someone who looks like you excelling and sharing their personal and professional experiences in a work setting. That's how you can really build that muscle and build that confidence so that these young women know that there's a place for them and that they know that they will belong and that they will exceed and succeed as they maneuver through. So for me, as a community partner, there's really not better synergy that we can find with a community partner, but also as these young women start to transition into becoming employees, we will have those pathways open, those doors will be open. So because they've already had the access to people like myself and people like the mentors that I've had in the company to really show them the way and create those pathways forward.
Thank you.
Outstanding.
Hopefully that kind of explains a little about what we are doing alongside with Polished Pebbles through the Job Shadow program and through career panels like this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love the way that you talked about the executives. And I think that is just so important because when you have the senior leaders that are involved, then I think that it gets infectious and it creates a culture across the whole entire organization. So really, really honored to be able to be a co-panelist with you in this segment.
Yes, well, thank you so much. You're right, it is infectious. And, to turn around for you as well, you are an executive in your company as a senior vice president, different from hospitality, but still within the financial, industry. Financial literacy is an imperative for all of us, but particularly for young women and young women of color who may not have had the access to understand or how to become financially literate. How can you and your role and through your company and organization, how are you working to close that hope gap that Kelly talked about for these young girls and to give them access to the information that's going to help them both short and long term?
That is quite the undertaking. When I think about what you mentioned, you said two things. You said myself, but then you also talked about the company as a whole. And so first, I just want to maybe talk about myself, because when I look at Polished Pebbles, part of what resonates for our company and my colleagues who I know are on the line in our Chicago region, but for our company, but also for me, is the fact that I'm that polished pebble. I don't want to declare that I'm polished, but I was that pebble that really wasn't polished, I should say, because of exposure. So when I look at closing the hope gap, I think about just my journey And the fact that when we look at financial literacy, my father was a Vietnam veteran, my mother was a homemaker, and when they came together, they might have loved each other, but when it came to the love of money, they might have loved the money, but knowing how to handle the money were two different things. And so unfortunately, I wasn't exposed to how to manage money effectively in the home. So my parents, they gave what they could from a knowledge standpoint, but we were definitely, in the beginning of the month, we would have some money, but probably about that second week of the month, the money was gone, right? And so that's what I was raised with, was that type of literacy and understanding. And that exposure at a young age for our young girls, I'm really passionate about that. My colleagues are passionate about it because we want to make sure that we are exposing them to financial literacy at a young age. And if they are able to be exposed, and they may be able to be like me. In the end, I sat down with my parents and I started to say, well, let's manage the money. Didn't even know that there was a such thing as financial literacy. And I would say, let's do the bills. So the bills was fun for me. You know, my parents were having intense dialogue about the bills. I'm sitting there like, oh, let's go ahead and do the math around it. And I think that our girls can do that. We don't want them to be the parent. I'm not saying that, but how do they get exposed to financial literacy, understanding about needs and wants and different things of that nature, and personal finance at a young age, so that they can be in a better position to be empowered. So that exposure at a young age is something that's really passionate, for a passion of mine and of our company. But there's another level of exposure when it comes to finances. And so going back again to my story, I'm a product of mentorship. So my parents, again, they didn't, neither one of them have graduated from college, and they really sacrificed for me to go to school and then also to go to college. And I was someone that was blessed to have mentors, African-American females and males and other people who were not African-American, who invested in me. But specifically to speak on those who were African-American, they took time to teach me about the field of finance. So that little girl who wanted to learn how to do money at a young age, all of a sudden learned more about this whole huge industry of finance through people who took the time to invest in me or expose me, I would say, to something else. And then now here I am, fast forward, I'm able to lead in a region when it comes to financial literacy, but then also then I was blessed to be able to expand across several regions and across several states. And so when I look at Huntington about the exposure that I had, now you can see my executives, just like yours, we're seeking to how can we expose others, young girls in particular, young girls of color in particular, to finance. And so we bring them into the boardroom. Some of them may never have an experience of sitting in a boardroom unless we take them there. So we do that. We do job shadowing, but not only of careers in a branch where sometimes youth will understand the branches, but they may not understand the other levels of finance. And so we really take pride in that. And in our Chicago region in particular, we're looking at deepening the relationship with Polished Pebbles. So you, Kelly, and your whole team, so that we can be able to see that exposure to be magnified. When they're exposed to this, then we do believe that the whole community will be able to grow.
Well, Renee, we are definitely honored and excited about continuing the partnership with Huntington. We're also, Monique, excited about continuing the partnership with Let Us Entertain You as well. And appreciate both of you guys for sharing some really great points that basically often these early experiences that we're providing girls. I can't believe you how many times people think that I'm crazy when I talked about doing goal development and career development for school-age girls. And like Monique says, it provides access and a pathway to careers and industries and companies that they didn't know about. So thank you for that. And thank you for mentioning that girls can also be the educators to bring skills like financial literacy to the entire family. So we're definitely sowing seeds, Renee, in our girls being mentors for the entire family, the entire community. And like you ladies have shown, mentorship is a part of who you guys are as professionals. So thank you so much for that contributions. I want to skip ahead to our next pairs. So let's go ahead and shift to Jean G. Wine. She is again a partner at Fox, Swibel, Levin, and Carroll LLP. And of course, Jenny Hahn, she is the director of design integration at the Bolt Company. All right, Jean and Jenny, you guys can take it away.
You're muted, Jean. That's my job, to call you out.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you so much, Kelly, for having me. It is a privilege to be here and a privilege to be paired with my old friend, Jenny Hahn. So Jenny, Asian girls are often held up as the most successful or the quote unquote model minority, but you've described encountering some major barriers and lack of support. How did those experiences influence the work that you do now?
So I want to say thank you for posing the question, but also thank you to Polished Pebbles for many years of collaboration. Happy Black History Month and also Lunar New Year. We have a lot of mixed race in our community. So to my friends who have Blasian kids, you know, and are mixed, like this is a very special time and a special month. I am honored to be part of this panel because I have been collaborating with Polished Pebbles on many levels. And which I'll talk about soon. So I want to address, every time I hear the term model minority, there's a small piece of me dies and I get a little bit twitchy. And I actually would want to say that that term in itself is a major barrier that's been in my life and in other people's lives because it's really what I believe to be a construct that actually keeps us apart as women of color and sort of competing for a smaller piece of the pie rather than looking at the whole pie. So I'm a very strong proponent that I'm going to get a little bit sort of philosophical here, that systemic racism equals prejudice plus power. So for me, the idea that I'm supposed to be this thing that I might not be is really removing a piece of my identity and many of the people in my community, which I don't speak for all of, I speak from my own experience. But last I checked, you know, Asian women weren't ruling the boardrooms and creating all the legislation and so forth. So that to me is an interesting barrier that I am always trying to overcome, always trying to make connections between communities, because when you say Black and brown, I consider us a part of that, but it is not always understood that way. So anytime we can have conversations like this, I like to push that boundary. And so this goes also to my work as a mentor. I am a mentor with the Young Women Warriors Mentor Program. I've been doing it for 23 years. And that's actually how Kelly and I met together with Ana Valencia's Status of Women and Girls. She had a tabletop event in 2018, which was unforgettable because it was when truly we brought our youth together and they wanted to work together to make connections across communities. And so to sort of dispel these myths amongst each other and to make really meaningful connections. But one of the reasons why I mentor is because, as was mentioned earlier, I did not have people who looked like me who were doing things that I wanted to do. And so I spent a lot of time struggling around that. And the reason why I mentor is to help to get youth over that hump earlier, to realize, you know, they can actually pursue what is their true authentic selves interest. And I think as women of color, we all face some of the same kinds of visions and views that we can't do a lot of these things. And so I also want to mention that, you know, the kind of dynamics that are playing out against Asian Americans these days, it's always brewing in the background. It's not very dissimilar from any other community of color. It just, you know, chooses to rear its ugly head. There's a lot of anti-Asian violence around COVID, and particularly with the shootings in Georgia. Those were specifically because of stereotypes of Asian women. So the last thing that I want to say, though, is that in our youth, in our community, actually shocking and astonishing that the level of mental health issues before COVID was really abominable because between the ages of 10 and 24, the leading cause of death is suicide for Asian girls. So that is a dynamic that cannot be ignored. And that's one of the primary reasons why I want to intervene quickly and earlier, as early as possible, to create hope. That's the true hope gap, that we're losing our youth. And really in this day and age, with the lack of labor workforce, we can't afford to lose anybody, right? I mean, it just doesn't make economical sense. So you had mentioned earlier that I was on as a founding member of She Builds, and and I have worked with Jean in the past in business. So this is like the perfect segue that we both are involved with gathering diverse groups of women across the construction industry. And I have a particular soft spot for tradeswomen. So I actually want to now shift the conversation back to Jean, talking about what the challenges are for opening doors for young women of color in the trades. This is why we have the Pink Hard Hats program, and how we can advertise these opportunities to women, young women, to showcase that these are viable and secure career paths.
Sure. Yeah, I think that the biggest obstacle to getting women and women of color into the trades is simply knowing that these career paths exist and that they provide meaningful, secure, and financially viable paths to success throughout your entire career. I mean, the trades are really an opportunity to go do something that's going to provide you with a real career, with pathways and abilities to rise and abilities to gain seniority and things like that, to be perhaps in a union, to have real financial security without a college degree. And I think that it's not that people, I certainly hope at least, that it's not that people, especially women and women of color, would not be interested in that. I think it's more that they don't know that it exists, or that they've heard about it sort of in the periphery. Some guy down the street is in, the electricians union or something like that, but they don't really know what steps you would have to take to participate in that. And they don't know that women can do those things. And so in terms of, I've thought a lot about this, gosh, what is the best way to get that information to our girls? And I know that there's organizations like Polished Pebbles and others that do this work. I think that if somehow we could get the information into our high schools, so that it's something that's really available to the career counselors, or maybe we are as a construction community going into the high schools on some sort of basis where every high school gets touched once or twice a year to just simply provide the information, and maybe a little bit of spoon feeding, right? Because some of these girls might be hearing about these opportunities for the first time. And it might not seem really real that, oh, wait a minute, there's this opportunity out there to do these things, and I don't need to go to college, and someone will help me get there. But we have to sort of give folks those tools, because they're not easily accessible. Frankly, you can't Google, how do I do this? And then, automatically something pops up and you can just follow it so simply. So I think the biggest barrier is informing our girls that these opportunities exist, that they are exciting, valuable, fantastic career opportunities, and then secondarily providing them with the steps of, okay, here's how you go to pursue these things if you so desire.
Absolutely. Ladies, I want to thank you guys both for bringing such wonderful points to this conversation. Really, knowledge is power, whether it's knowledge about career opportunities, industries that girls, and let's be frank, the women and the mothers in their communities just may not be in tune to, may have never seen a woman do it, and may not think that women are capable of it. So thank you for knowledge is power. Role models that we can show are powerful. And I think the other thing I think was a great point was the knowledge of having these kind of conversations where we're pushing the boundaries and sharing. Many of us may all be women. Many of us all may be people of color, but our distinctive experiences may be different, and we need to share and have those conversations. I always say these conversations can never come too fast in a city like Chicago with 77 neighborhoods and 77 boundaries and years and history of how we haven't come together to have these conversations. So thank you guys so much for getting us started, and hopefully a 2022 of many, many more of these conversations. So thank you to you both. All right, we're going to shift now the conversation to Karen Freeman Wilson, President and CEO of the Chicago Urban League, and to Maureen Stemming, the Director of the Professional Development Program at the University of Chicago, Crown Family School of Social Work, Policy, and Practice. That is a whole lot of words, but that means there's a whole lot going on over there. And welcome and thank you to you two ladies, as you guys have continuously supported our Polished Pebbles program in the past. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thank you. Kelly, I want to thank you for your invitation to participate in today's panel, and Chris Kurse for connecting us, as well as Madeline Frigo for helping to prepare today's program. And I want to share, Mayor Karen, that I am a fellow Hoosier. I was born and raised in Indianapolis, and so I want to thank you for your many years of service to a state that I know we hold very close to our hearts.
Thank you. How exciting.
Yeah. It is clear from your bio that Kelly shared at the beginning that you have accomplished a lot of first. And I know from your role overseeing the many programs at the Chicago Urban League, I was looking at the Workforce Development Center, Youth Services Center, that you don't have a lot of time on your hands. And so you continue to make time in building the bench of younger Black women leaders. And so I was hoping that you could talk a little bit with today of that importance to you.
Absolutely. First, I just want to tell you how excited I am, Maureen, to be in community with you. You've done some amazing work at the Crown School, and so it's an honor to be paired with you today. I also just want to say to Kelly how much I appreciate and admire the work of Polished Pebbles, and so it's an honor to be included on this program. When I think of the amazing opportunities that I've had, the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about my first is that while it's very humbling to be first in a number of areas, I think that it really speaks more to my mother's generation, who worked really hard to make sure that those opportunities were available, and to my daughter's generation that is looking to us to lead the way. And while my daughter is a bit older than the wonderful girls, and I had an opportunity to spend a day when I was in City Hall with one of the Polished Pebbles girls, and look forward to doing it at the Urban League. What I understand is it does not make sense, and it really is of no value to be first if you don't bring someone else along to ensure that there are many who follow. And so when I thought about and listened to the presenters before, they talked about exposure. They talked about opportunity. They talked about simply providing the motivation to encourage the girls to think beyond traditional areas. When you think about construction and related fields, when you think about many professions like engineering, and we'll hear a bit about that later, that are not traditionally marketed to women or to young girls. In fact, all of the STEM or STEAM areas, they are not traditionally marketing to young girls. And so I think it's important that we take the parameters off of professions. Earlier today, I had a conversation with a colleague who said that she took industrial arts. And she was saying that they would allow her to do all of the written work, but they would not allow her to work with the equipment. Now that's many moons ago, because she is more in my generation than the Polished Pebbles generation. But I think that there are still sort of limitations that we provide. And so I think my job and our job collectively is to say to these girls that the sky is the limit. You can be whatever you want to be. You can be the mayor if you want to be, but you can also be the president. Even though we have not had our first female president, we have had our first female vice president. And the fact that the vice president is so close to the Oval, that means and should mean to our polished pebbles that the sky is the limit. But it doesn't just happen. It happens because there are women like us who are speaking to them about the opportunities that exist, who are encouraging them, who are exposing them to the possibilities that exist, and that they too can achieve not just what we achieve, but beyond what we achieved. I remember as a little girl seeing and being exposed to Mayor Richard Gordon Hatcher at the age of 7. And I knew then that I wanted to be mayor. And it never occurred to me that he was a man, that there had never been a female mayor of Gary, and that I could not be what he was aspiring to be, because I saw him when he was campaigning. And over the 20 years that he was mayor, because of his accessibility to young people, I knew increasingly that it was possible. And so I think the accessibility really does matter. And so it doesn't matter that I'm busy, because I am, and it doesn't matter that we have a lot of responsibilities. I would say that chief among those responsibilities is to build a bench, is to create that opportunity, and is to open doors. So thank you for that question, and again, for the opportunity to be in community with you. So I'm going to turn the tables on you, Maureen. And we know of the great work that is going on at the Crown School at the University of Chicago. And one of the things that we understand is that there are many social workers who are very committed to the work of Polished Pebbles, but we also know that there are many organizations that are led by white women who are sincere, who are well-meaning. And I wanted to ask you to talk a bit about how those women might be able to be better allies, how they might listen more, how they might even support not just the work of Polished Pebbles, but of all organizations that are looking to create opportunities and build up young girls of color.
Thank you. It is a question that I think about a lot daily in my work, and that I have to start with myself. Because I think when we think about power, we often associate it with a title. So maybe you're a supervisor or executive director of a nonprofit. And if you don't hold one of those titles, maybe you think that you don't have power. However, for white women, who, as you noted, are the majority of social workers, social service providers, power is in the position of our identity and the color of our skin. So no matter where we are in an organization or what we do, we have to acknowledge that, and that power and privilege, what do we do with it? And when I moved to Chicago in the early 90s, I was the well-meaning white woman. And my first job was a counselor in elementary schools on the near west and south sides. And I was working with young Black girls and boys, their families. And I see it as the greatest gift and honor that you can receive when someone shares their life story with you. And your responsibility is to listen, support, encourage, and know that they are the expert in their journey and not you. And that when I was thinking about this panel and the program and this dynamic, we see a number of persons outside of the communities of color coming in as though to fix persons' communities that are not broken. And I now oversee a continuing education program, so I have a responsibility of training current and future generations of social workers and other professionals who are leaders in the nonprofit sector. And so shortly after I started, I recognized that the majority of our instructors were white. And when you walk into a room for a training, there's an immediate message that we send that the person at the front of the room is the expert and the person to teach others. And so I knew it was important to increase the diversity of our instructors, to think deeply about the content of our programs, to be more intentional for anti-racist practices and culture of humility. Social work looks at the person and environment, so what we call the micro and macro level. How do we break down structures of systemic racism in addition to the direct practice of work that we do? And I was thinking about that. I'll take pride in those initiatives, which I do, but it was brought to my attention that the cost of our programs are exclusionary and a significant barrier to smaller nonprofits and practitioners who may not be able to afford the cost of our tuition or even the scheduling of our programs. And as I thought about it, it wasn't just humbling, it was humiliating. Because I realized a role that I've had and a position of power that I do, and is at a university, let's be honest, has a very complicated, that's an understatement, of a relationship with the communities and service providers that surround us on the South Side. I knew that I wasn't doing enough to increase accessibility and affordability of our trainings. And so I think that's the other area for white women to think about and take action on, because we can applaud our efforts, know that we are good people with good intentions, and still do harm. And so acknowledging first and foremost who we are, our identity, our history, our current role with power and privilege, should make us think about how do we use that? How do we elevate the voice of those around us who do not have the same power and social capital that we do? How are we, as you said, allies and advocates, not seeing ourselves as the experts when we come into relationships with individuals, children, adolescents, families, and the communities? And who do we surround ourselves with who can call us out and be a mirror to us that we are often not who we hold ourselves out to be, because there is a tendency to fall into that trap. You're proud and rightly of the work and the profession that you chose, but that we're given a mirror to think more deeply about who we are and not always who we hold ourselves out to be. And that particularly in this work of social work, to think about being social agents of change and thinking about those larger systemic racism, structural barriers that, as much as you are doing with individual work and direct service, if you don't address those others and take action and do work toward those that are disproportionately impacting individuals and persons of color. And so when I was thinking about this and the question, I think that one of the challenges for white women is to approach our work with humility, curiosity, and to have the intent to learn, not necessarily lead unless it is in actions that are to use our power to empower.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, no, ladies, I want to thank the both of you guys for great answers to some really tough questions. One of the things that we've definitely wanted to be able to bring to this platform today is that the importance of everybody has a role in this conversation about how to invest and how to support Black and Brown girls, regardless if we come from those communities or we don't. And some of that can be really, quite frankly, uncomfortable, and we can not be sure how to do it. But I love hearing and seeing how our communities really kind of came together to support one another to make sure that we all made it to this platform. Thank you, Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, for talking about the importance of intergenerational mentoring. The importance of showing the accessibilities, the possibilities, and that yes, you can do better and beyond me. So making sure that all throughout the generations, we're continuing this connection with mentoring. And thank you so much for Maureen for giving some really clear instructions and thoughts to share about steps, the humility, the importance of being curious, the importance of white women having the intent to learn and not always thinking that they're in a position to only lead, but thinking about leading really effectively with being open to reflection and open to implementing change to elevate the voices of others without the same social privilege and capital. So thank you so much for that. I want to kind of shift us now to, as we are going to move and start closing out this part of our conversation today. And we're going to close it out with Hemina Larkin, who is the Director of Digital Strategy for Mayor Lori Lightfoot and the City of Chicago, and Wilbur Millhouse, who is the Chairman CEO of Millhouse Engineering and Construction Incorporated. And I see a couple of people have popped a question or two, and actually Wilbur and some of our kind of construction and engineering folks might actually be able to address it once we put it out there. So I just want to remind our audience, we're coming to the close. So if you want to put your questions in the Q&A, please do so, and we'll make sure that our panelists will have a chance to answer them. All right, our final dynamic power pair. I'm going to turn it over to Hemina and Wilbur.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a great honor to be here today. And man, what a great group of individuals that I get to sit with today, and very positively affected, and great to hear all of those wonderful answers to all of those questions. So hopefully all of the Polished Pebbles are really tuned in and really figuring out some of the things that they may be interested in, whether it's charitable things that get involved in, hospitality, finance, communications, being a mayor. I mean, it's a lot of great opportunities of all kinds of things that you guys can be. I mean, I wanted to get in there and ask you a question. I mean, you guys, she has spent time with the Obamas and several other individuals. I mean, rock star, and you've done so much, and you've done so much in the political space now, even serving the current mayor, Lightfoot. Tell me, there's a lot going on in the Chicagoland area with Colored Girl Power, just really getting into so many different offices. And with that rise, what's next for young women of color? And what else do you think is possible? And what's your vision?
Yeah, I echo everyone else's sentiments. Thank you, Kelly, for putting this together. This is such an important conversation. And to answer your question, I mean, I think I see Karen Freeman Wilson, who is a former mayor. When I think of the landscape and why these conversations are so important is because as much as there's so many incredible wins, we still have so much work to do. There is not enough, in my opinion, being done to foster a pipeline of talent. For every Kamala, we hear AOC, it's great, but then it kind of stops there, right? Or Mayor Lori Lightfoot, that's it. I want us to get to a point where we're rattling them off like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, like, let's get these women where it's multiple. I'm not a household name. It's great that I'm in this space, and I know I'm one of the few women of color in this space. I am part of the mayor's senior staff, but to me, it's not enough to be the only one. We need to foster those relationships, and especially here in this space, something like this is incredibly important. I just had a conversation with someone last week, which is every action you take, every seed that you plant, just because you might not see immediate change today or tomorrow, doesn't mean it's not worth it. Every action that's being taken is incredibly valuable. For me, I don't consider myself a political person. I was brought into this world because I had a friend who looked like me. He was brown. He's an immigrant from Mexico City, single mother. I saw him working at the White House. He was on Air Force One with Obama. He was in the Oval Office with Obama. And to me, it no longer seemed like this far-reaching job. The reality of it is, too, politics is painted as something that's really boring, difficult to understand, slow. If that were true, then why would you have so many powerful, wealthy people with money fighting to maintain those positions of power? And that's when I really woke up. I was in my 30s. I'm 34 now. So I think I was like 30 when I really woke up to that. And I saw it up close that all power, money runs through politics. And if you don't understand it, there's so many things that allow you to be disenfranchised. And again, there's a reason why they say it's boring and it's not interesting. Oh, young people go over here. And then you realize how much it impacts you. And so for me, I still don't consider myself a political person. I am showing up to serve, and you can't be what you can't see. So I am taking up space because I know that if I'm not here, who will take these positions? And I hope in time that when I look back, that pipeline of talent, it's not one person or two, but it's a whole coalition of groups. And that begins by, again, sharing these positions, sharing this narrative, because I didn't necessarily have people who look like me when I was young telling me that these possibilities existed. It became when I got older and I began to challenge the world around me, and through a curiosity, ask questions and ask people and identify patterns that I realized, like, this is really important for me to be involved in. And if I'm not, it's a disservice to myself and it's a disservice to my community. So when I think of the political landscape, there are some big wins that we should absolutely celebrate. However, there's still so much work to be done. And while it is on people who look like us, women, people of color, to show up in those spaces, it's also really important, the things that Maureen was saying, that Dave, that you bring in people and you support and you create a community, because politics, you're going to need mentors, you're going to need money, fundraising, support. You have to do it with a community, and that community, the more diverse, they call them coalitions, which are groups who can back you and support you and give you information, give you support that you need to rise up, is incredibly important. So if there's anything the group takes away, it's that we need to be investing. We need to give people a lane, a space, share these stories, and then support the folks. Whether if you can do it yourself, if you're like, oh, I know somebody, let me connect them, that's just as important. It's not always monetary. So hope that answers your question. I'm going to, like Wilbur, you are doing so many incredible things. So as a Black man, why are you focused on investing in Black and brown girls? And what's important why is it important for our communities to be so intentional about it?
Yeah, I think the key word there is being intentional. I mean, for me, having and seeing the opportunities that exist in my space, which is engineering and construction, and what it's been able to do for me and the opportunities that it's been able to do for me to be able to provide, I just think it's like a great secret, right? And when I was going to school and when I was going through and working at various different places, it wasn't a lot of people like me, male or female. So I always think of it as the big opportunity. Today, probably in college, there's probably somewhere around 20 to 25% of the individuals that are actually in college going for engineering. That is really all, except if you go to a school like Georgia Tech, which has about 40%, which is probably the highest of any college there. But 50% of our population is women. So for me, I go, wow, what a big opportunity to be able to get an entire group of individuals working in the construction and engineering arena. Most of the construction companies and most of the work that's being done in the trades, I mean, you're down at less than 10% of the individuals that are in the trades working, probably somewhere in the 20% range for the engineering firm. So again, what a great opportunity. So for me, it's self-serving, plus I just want to see individuals like myself and individuals be able to not have that ceiling, not have those barriers, and be able to really go and do what they want to do. And I think that, to me, is the greatest crown that I can wear, which is to give someone an opportunity and give them no ceiling to be able to do whatever it is that they want to do.
Well, I want to thank both you and Jimena Wilbur for those awesome answers, and definitely really sending home the message, that really basic concept, but it's so powerful, and it means so much, especially in a discussion like this, which is you can't be what you can't see. And so there's so many of the panelists today, and of course, Wilbur, including yourself and Jimena, being pioneers to really kind of be the trailblazers, to create the pathway, to be the first ones, to create the space and the role models for others to look up to. But thank you for being honest that it's self-serving. I mean, it'd be amazing to get some more Black girl magic in the trades and in construction, and just woman and girl magic, period, because we are, and we've demonstrated in many ways, dynamic leaders and dynamic team members, and have a lot to bring to the table. And so thank you for your voice today, and thank you for serving as an advocate, for showing up in these spaces. So what I'd like to do is, we do have one question, Wilbur, and I'm going to toss it to you because it's in your realm. And it's from Alyssa G. She says, and of course, any of the panelists, if you want to jump in after Wilbur, please feel free to do so. Alyssa says, I am currently a student and also working in the engineering field. How can someone in my position follow your lead and continue exposure to opportunities in engineering / construction and / the trades?
She's a student right now.
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, the first thing is definitely being there and getting all of those qualifications. So if you're a student in engineering, one of the key pieces that you have to remember is once you graduate, you're not done. There's a test called the EIT, Engineering and Training Exam, that you should take like in your senior year. And that gets you to be able to take your PE, which is your professional engineering license. So those set you up for being able to own a company and being able to stamp plans and being able to do so much, not only here in Illinois, but throughout the entire United States. Then we have to get you meeting with various individuals inside of your field, where you're networking and talking with various different individuals about your field, different areas that you may be able to go into related to that specific engineering field. And then you have to network with other fields as well to bring together that entire network of community of individuals, and mentors. So you get a person like me, where I would definitely ask you to come in and talk and show you around our office and show you the different things that I've done along the way, so you could see some of those things, meet some of those people, and then consistently be able to go and do those things. When I first started out, I had a mentor, still have a mentor. His name is Rupert Graham. He owned a company, he had a firm. I went to go see those firms, even while I was working somewhere else. And then eventually he hired me, and eventually I ended up running that firm and then building this firm that I'm with today. So part of all of that is what I would suggest in brief, but definitely reach out to me. We have internships. We have 100 open roles right now. So we're looking to employ you right now and be able to have you working with us during the summer, during the year, if you're working in town or in school in town. So I look forward to talking with you soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Wilbur. Is there anybody else, just particularly from that particular industry, that wants to address that? I saw Jenny was typing. So go ahead, Jenny, and quickly, and then we'll move.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I would just reiterate what Wilbur said. I'm an architect, so I deal with engineers all the time, and it's a very similar tract. There are student organizations also like NOMA, INOMA for Illinois, that are national organizations for basically designers of color, and ACE mentor program. There are lots of programs, take advantage of them, but I say intern and network early and often. You have to, I mean, create the network you want to be part of, and don't be afraid to get out there. And a lot of times people like Wilbur, and for certainly me, and people who want to encourage development and growth for our communities, we will take a coffee any day of the week and just like chat and talk, because if you don't know what you don't know. And so you might think that you want to do a certain kind of thing and you have no idea that it's that thing until you intern there, and then maybe you'll change your mind. So it's really a path. It's not a straight line. So I definitely concur that getting out there and making connections is critical.
So I love this whole piece about making connections. We're making lots of connections here. You know, a lot of times people think when Polished Pebbles comes together and we're doing the event, they're like, so where are the girls? And this is one of those events. We're not in a real space, but I'm sure virtually people are looking like, well, where's so-and-so elementary and so-and-so middle school? No, today, this is just a conversation with the grown folks. We don't have enough conversations with grown folks about A, how do we create these pathways? B, being very clear on the challenges that our young people are presenting. And that's my job as a practitioner, is to bring that to you, inform you. C, how do we make these connections between what you're doing so you can continue to meet your profitable bottom lines, but part of your bottom lines also include, like Wilbur and Millhouse, and increasing the amount of females that work in their industry. And so one of the things that some of the panelists, or actually audience members, have put in the chats is they were thanking Jean and talking about networking opportunities and networks within. So I don't know if any of you guys want to speak a little bit about that. We had some ERGs join together, employee resource groups, on this talk. So I don't know if any of you guys want to mention. Monique, I know you work with one, but let us entertain you. Jean, you definitely have one. And Jenny, you also work with She Builds. Those are great ways to begin thinking about creating these pathways and thinking about starting these conversations in your companies. Anybody want to give out shout out to one of their orgs or networking groups?
I actually just was typing in response to the question that Jenny and Wilbur had just answered along those same lines, Kelly. I'm going to echo what Jenny said, which is network, network, network. It is never too early. It is one of the biggest mistakes that I made professionally, was to not start early enough. And I think part of that was because I viewed all of these organizations as for the, as Kelly said, the grown folks that have already gotten to a certain level of success, and they're not. My organization is the Professional Women in Construction. We have a student rate, and we have programs that are for the folks that are coming from the companies, and they pay for their tickets. And then we have a whole bunch of free programs and mentorship programs and stuff that just comes with your student priced membership that gets you out, and you can meet a ton of different women in different organizations who are engineers, who are architects, who are owners reps, who are in construction, that will talk with you. We are all, as Jenny said, super excited to talk to the youth in our industries about what we do, about what they want to do, about what their next steps could be. Everyone is, you don't think that people are going to want to give you that time, but they do. So find a few organizations like that, join them, come try out an event, see if you like it. It's a great way to start to get to know people. And before you know it, you'll have an actual network and people that you can contact when you're ready to look for that internship. And it will be a lot easier with a network than it is to just blindly go to the internet to try to find a job. So to that end, if anyone who's listening wants to learn more about that concept or about my organization, find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to, I love talking about this stuff. It's something that I do, and I love it. So.
Well, shout out and thank you again to all of our panelists today and sharing the things that you did and contributing to this really important conversation. And we're also really excited as we're talking about the sharing of the networks and things like that in the organizations. If you're here today with the ERG or Employee Resource Group, you're the one representative of your company or have a family member who might, and they think they might want to get involved with Polished Pebbles, please do send us an email at info@polishedpebbles.com. We are actively looking for more partners. We are growing. We are serving 40+ schools this year, and we need job shadow partners for every single one of those sites. So thank you for that. And I'm going to end with a point that one of our powerful Polished Pebbles board members, Betsy Cavell, made. She is also in engineering at Nokia, and she said, hey, it's not just the young people who need to know the when, the where, and how and where to go. This is a conversation that we could take with our colleagues, with our coworkers, our teams as well, to talk about how they can grow their careers. But also growing your career is not just making the next move to your next career level. Part of being a happy employee and being happy with the company that you're with is doing things that give back to you and give back to the community. And I can't tell you what better place you might want to land and do that is by investing in girls and helping us to close the hope gap here at Polished Pebbles. So thank you so much for all of our panelists, all of our audience members today. And don't fret, we will share this recording out. If you're interested in getting that recording and sharing it with your team, send us an email at info@polishedpebbles.com. And of course, if you feel the need to donate in any way, shape, or form, Dave has actually dropped that link in the group as well. So thank you guys so much. It's the first of many conversations about closing the hope gap for girls, and happy Black History Month. Thank you.